Welcome to Fandom Power.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hello, sir. How do you do?
We do well. It's us again. This time, it is the Fandom Variance Authority, and it's Hank, and as always, Wes. Oh, that way, Wes.
Hey, guys.
Andy down there. Oh, that way.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and we're here to talk about the Disney Plus show Loki. Now, Loki was. I wasn't expecting what we got. You know, like his character was great in the show, or in the movies, but I just wasn't expecting them to like just hone in on that. And I think it's definitely due to the strength of the actor Tom Hiddleston. And so let's just start now. Michael Waldron is the show creator, and the head writer for the first season, all 6 episodes he wrote.
Right.
I'm sure he had a writing team, and he's from Rick and Morty fame is huge to my heart. And if anybody knows anything about Rick and Morty,
I never would have known
multiverse.
That.
Yeah, the multiverse stuff. Like you might as well be watching like the Council of Ricks is the Council of Kangs is the Council of you know, and so he comes from this great place of being able to tell a really cool story, you know, a cool sci-fi or fantasy story. So I love that. The whole show directed by Kate Herron. I don't know a hell of a lot about her, but I really, really like what she did with this. So I'm super happy. And of course, we can't talk about this without talking about where this came from, where this whole idea started, and that's with comic books.
Yeah.
Right? So the Loki's first appearance, sort of in a big way. He was in a few you know, Journey into Mystery comics before as a minor thing, but the Avengers #1 is literally what they took the MCU version of Loki from. That the whole story of the first Avengers movie is this story in a nutshell. And it's really important to remember that the superheroes are like modern myths. Like we feel that way about Star Wars. I feel that way about Marvel superheroes, and a lot of people feel that way about DC superheroes. But you know, imagine being a kid in ancient Greece and running and having the orator tell you the story of Hercules, or, you know, going to a stadium and seeing a show where they put on, you know, Homer's Iliad, and you got to learn about, you know, Achilles and the Trojan War. And it's the same thing to me. And I think some, you know, way, way down, maybe 1,000 years down the line, kids will be taking, you know, modern North American mythology and studying superheroes. I really feel like that.
I think it's a full circle moment when you say that, talking about an orator and how they would recount, you know, the tales of whoever it would be. And the MCU gave us that full circle moment with the Thor production, the live show, right? And even in our own sense, in the real world, we have a musical, a Star Wars musical.
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about that exploration of the modern mythos and that bringing it around full circle, I totally agree with you. And I hope that I hope a lot of our favorite pop culture properties get that sort of treatment going down the road, because honestly, I love that stuff.
So it was probably almost 3 years ago when they announced this show.
Has it been that long?
Excited? Yeah, it was in the summer, sort of 2018.
Was it not the first one of the Marvel series to be announced?
I believe so, because it came on the heels of Endgame.
Right. And everybody was like, oh, what are we going to do? Because
that was a fairly large plot thread to leave hanging.
Sure. I mean, we get a dead character, and how is he going to get his own series? I think that's probably one of the biggest questions we all had.
Well, I had no questions about it. It was going to be about
him
right after he
no, you're right. Of course, 2000, of course.
So, well, and that brings us to our first point, I guess, which is, would you have any expectations, you know, going in?
You know, I did actually. For me, and it turned out that the delivery was not what I thought it was going to be, because I honestly thought that they were going to lean into 2012 Loki a lot harder, that he was going to be the anti-hero, as it were. I don't want to call him a villain, but I mean, let's remember 2012 Avengers, he was the villain. And so I'm like, we're getting the 2012 Loki, which means this guy is he's a bastard. He's an evil dude. And I thought that they were really going to do, you know, some of the jokes they made throughout the series about him, you know, betraying, you know, potential allies and wanting to rule. And I thought that the story was going to be more of that. And I actually thought it was going to be more galactic. Like we were going to do a lot more. And I don't know why. I just thought we were going to be more kind of spacey.
Space Loki. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
King of space.
Right. And clearly that is not not what we got. So yeah, that was what I was thinking going into it. So other than that, I tried to keep an open mind to the series.
I halfway thought we were going to get Captain America chasing him through the multiverse.
Oh, you know, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. Going after that Tesseract to put it back where it was supposed to be.
Yeah, really. I put them all back, and now you're running around with this thing, you dumbass.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of brushed up on the character in recent MCU stuff or recent sort of comic book stuff because I know, checked out of a lot of the titles. I'm familiar with, like, I'm super good at the 80s and the 90s, but beyond that,
right.
So I did some investigating, and there's a million stories that are just go all crazy, and then he's sort of a villain, so it's sort of harder to track them because he's pops up in other people's lines, you know, all the time. Stuff certainly in Thor, tons and stuff. But I guess my biggest thing was I was excited about it because of how good the other TV properties were. And I was sort of worried about the TV properties in general. And as soon as I knew they were bringing the production level, the film quality production levels, and having both been blown away by WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was ready for something to blow me away. And I wasn't disappointed. That's for sure.
I was going to say, for anybody who's watched our shows, if we went back to that, go back and have a look at our WandaVision review and actually listen to your thoughts. And you were like, what the hell is going on? And you were almost checked out.
No, absolutely.
But a little recommendation, you know, just hold on. Episode 3, you'll be in, and you came around. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, and it was worth the wait, and it was also worth the. It was worth having been subverted like that. You know, to look back and go, oh wow, I got hook, line, and sinker into the mayhem there. Yeah. No. So, I mean, we could go a little bit into sort of the episodes, and you know, we're definitely going to start out with kind of where we left off with the character, if you will. I mean, we followed him. That's the thing that turns out breaks time. Interesting that in the middle of Infinity War, in the middle of a time heist, Loki would seize this opportunity to you know, make his grand move. So it's pretty cool that he ends up, in a nutshell, he ends up in a prisoner of the Time Variance Authority, and we meet, you know, the major players in the episode. We get to meet Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, and we did a fantastic job.
We had that moment there with Loki actually snatching the Tesseract in that moment. Really, that was my, this is the Loki that I do expect.
Yeah,
right. And then when he hits the dirt in Mongolia, and he's like, you know, talking about how he's going to rule, and then the TVA show up, and it's like, oh, so this is not what I think it is.
Right. And the thing that's really important to remember, and a lot of people can get lost because it is a timeline thing, and that this Loki hasn't experienced those things that the Loki we knew to grow and love that was redeemed by Infinity.
Oh yeah. That's definitely
none of those things happen to him. This guy, like you said, going in, this 2012 Loki, he's a despicable character.
Right.
And so he actually, maybe the biggest Nexus event is the fact that he has this whole other trajectory here. He evolves in a way that even himself didn't, going through the regular timeline.
Yeah, that's actually a point for me, and I don't know. We'll probably bring it up a little bit later as we go on in the conversation. But man, I know there's a limited time to work with these characters, and you can only do. You have to accomplish certain, not only story beats, but you have to develop those characters, and that's one of the issues I actually have with the show, is sort of development for certain characters and lack of development for others. So,
well, if you look at it as a parallel to, say, A Christmas Carol, Mobius is the ghost of future.
Oh, yeah,
he's gonna put Loki right through the ringer right in the first episode.
That's so true, isn't it?
And he comes out Scrooge-like on the other end, having seen what's coming.
That's a great analogy.
He follows that path.
That is a super good analogy. Yeah.
So let's talk about Mobius for a second. We might be a little out of order in terms of the characters that they appear, but anybody that knows anything about the comics know that Mobius is sort of a Fantastic Four villain. So this was my first thing that made me go, "Oh, we're stepping into a broader Marvel universe."
Yep.
And then you start to look a little deeper, and we've already heard the term TVA now in the show, and you start to look a little deeper at the character if you do your research. And you find out that actually this is exactly what he was, which is in the comics.
Oh, that's a pretty big divergence.
Yeah. So based on the actual writer and editor, where is it? I want to keep it up there.
We got him.
Okay. There he is. Mark Grunwald, who had a spectacular run on Thor in the 80s. He was responsible for things like Frog Thor and
right
some of the some of the tragic things that happened to Loki. But so the character of Mobius and Mobius based on this guy, and he's a Fantastic Four villain, and we can't discount sort of the Fantastic Four as the sort of preeminent family of the Marvel universe, and we haven't even dipped into that yet. One of the biggest properties. That's the one thing that Marvel did here was they took sort of like secondary characters and made them amazing. Just the idea that we haven't met these guys yet. So Mobius was a Fantastic Four villain because the first character to break the timeline inside 616, which is the comic universe, was Reed Richards. And so they were brought to the TVA, and basically very similar to Loki, only Reed Richards, they stole the files pertaining to their crime and therefore escaped because they essentially let go because the crime wasn't registered in the timeline anymore. So it helps to be a super genius.
I guess so.
Helps to be a super
clever
genius. But that it leads you down rabbit holes, right? So another thing, Hunter B-15.
Yeah,
very similar to the character. Thematically, she looks very different. But it's if you squint your eyes, and it's the shape of the helmet and the style of the armor. The Justice Peace, which is also a character from the first TVA appearance in a Thor comic. Sort of this, the police of the TVA come to write the timeline. Right. So very instrumental. Fantastic performance here by the actress. And then I guess maybe the biggest sort of dip into what I thought was coming was the character of Judge Renslayer.
Yep.
And so, wow, she's cute. And it's hard to, she's a bad guy, so it's hard to, for me, this was the biggest flag that we were headed towards Kang the Conqueror, and super early. And knowing that, I was like waiting for some crazy misdirect, because knowing how the path that WandaVision led us on, down the Mephisto lane, without actually managing to keep us satisfied, but not actually paying off that Mephisto thing. I was like, are they really going to go that route? Are they really going to show you from the comics, Ravonna Renslayer? In the comics, she's a time-traveling princess, and the primary love interest of Kang the Conqueror, who you see off to the side there.
Really?
So for me, I was just like, you just threw a dart at Kang the Conqueror. How could you ever divert from this? Well, they managed to do things. Like, absolutely, they managed to do things.
So I'm talking about the Mephisto thing for a second here, because, for me, who is, mostly steeped in MCU lore, it's become sort of my default Marvel universe in the last 22 films, 20 some odd movies and TV shows now, is I was right there with you. I thought, the Mephisto carrot that was dangled in WandaVision, I thought they actually were carrying that through when we got to the cathedral in medieval France with the stained glass portrait. And I thought, well, are we not just pointing in the same direction? And then no, we're really not.
Well, and an interesting point about that was posthumously, but not after the show had finished. The director Kate Herron had come out and said, no, that was sort of like a metaphor. The horns are Loki.
Yeah.
At the same time, I wanted to show you that was a version of Loki that's akin to the devil.
Okay.
One that brought the child the gift. But it also a misdirect because again, my mind went right to Mephisto as well.
I was going to say, like, I couldn't have been the only one who thought that.
No, my first watch, I was right there.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
On rewatch, though, I was like, yeah, it's the horns.
You see, even the second time around, I'm still. Maybe I was tired with my rewatch because I'm like, I still see Mephisto.
Because we're thrown off, right? Like we don't see Loki like Tom Hiddleston with his horns.
No, not until
the duration, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Until we get to all the variants, but
yeah,
by that time you've already forgotten the stained glass.
President Loki.
Mm-hmm. So okay, yeah, absolutely. Well, so I think we already touched on it, but did they after the whole thing? Were your expectations met? Did you I didn't have high ones. I had high ones based on the fact that WandaVision was so good and that Falcon was so good. But anything blow your mind?
I'm gonna go first on this one, and I'm gonna give the contrary opinion because overall, by the end of the show, I don't want to say that I was disappointed because I wasn't. It was good. It was totally entertaining, but I think given all the hype surrounding it, the amount of like you say, it was the first one announced, and there was so much like buzz about it that by the time it was delivered, I was like kind of underwhelmed. I knew that it was like by the end of the show, I fully understood that okay, this is really setting up Phase 4 and where we're going. And what's more exciting for me is now that the timeline is completely unbridled, I'm more interested in what's coming up in Doctor Strange and the new Spider-Man, because these events directly set those next events in motion, and those are more exciting to me than what happened to Loki on his journey. Although I'm not, not sympathetic to him, because I think he's a cool character, but even that has issues, which we'll get to. But generally speaking, the show did not meet my expectations.
No. Andy?
It gave me more than I expected, so I was quite happy with it. And the fact that we're getting another season, like the journey's not over, so the story is not over.
Yeah, I hope that they do more. Definitely, I think going forward, the biggest questions I have are sort of between the relationship between Loki and Sylvie and how that's going to be resolved. If her choices are going to drive this wedge between them, that's can't be overcome, or will the adage, love overcomes all? Will that actually play into it?
Yeah, I was super impressed. I didn't expect the level of depth that we would go into 616 with, or even any one of the sort of multiverse things. You almost knew too much about it going in because you knew where it was headed, which was they were using it to set up the next phase. Yeah. And I was convinced too, and I had this argument with Lauren a few times. She might pop in to say some stuff. I'm not sure that she might, but I had this argument, not really an argument, it was a discussion about. I didn't think that you would get big characters like Mephisto or Kang or in the TV shows, because I kind of thought like where their bread is, right, where the big money is theatrical releases, and the main sort of these are just sort of like little props. And I feel different after Loki, like after the whole thing. Like I feel like you probably can't have Doctor Strange when you watch it. You probably can't have Doctor Strange without this show, and definitely What If. And we discussed off, last when we first came up with the idea, let's do a Loki show. It's honestly, guys, we all really like the Loki show, but this is because we want to do a What If show, and this is why there is a What If show. And it wasn't so cut and dry in the comics. They just what if, and it was fun. And I loved it when I was a kid. I loved the first run.
That's the context that I'm watching it with now, because I remember reading some really crazy issues of What If. And so for me, the series, although I can link it to sort of the events of WandaVision and Loki, and the fact that now the timeline is broken and we have the multiversal concept. I mean, it's no secret Marvel and DC both have their own multiverse concepts. It's totally it's a thrill ride for me.
Yeah, right. And the thing about the What If comics is they used to tell you which version of the multiverse this was taking place in.
Sure.
And so it's the idea that like this is the event that breaks it.
Yeah.
And it's inevitably it's Loki's crazy narcissism. He falls in love with himself.
Yeah.
You know, that this weird thing that ends up shattering, you know, the peace in the universe if there was any.
Right.
And that right off that we get these iterations that we've already seen 3 episodes of how different things could be in all these little branches as we see. And I think we're going to get really into that clearly from the Spider-Man trailer. If you haven't seen it, spoilers, but there's a pumpkin bomb and a Doc Ock in it. And and this multiverse of madness literally referenced by Miss Minutes in the show.
That trailer alone, the amount of, I don't want to make this a Spider-Man thing, but did you notice the details on the pumpkin bomb?
Oh yeah.
That's one of Harry's bombs. That's not one of Norman's.
Yeah.
That's a little like, whoa.
Yeah. And I mean, that's fantastic. Like that's a character.
Yeah.
I mean, they crap themselves on that. And you know, and there's a great way to redeem that. I'd love to see a rubber mask. I'll tell you that. And like a robot.
Yeah.
Then you might get that giant Green Goblin from the
Ultimate Universe.
Oh yeah, the Ultimates,
the monster style one.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder there. I was just
no, not at all. Jeepers.
Back to Thunder. One of the what ifs way back when featured, you know, what if Jane Foster was Thor?
Oh, and now here we are.
It got pulled into regular continuity, and now it's going to come to the movies. So
I mean, just recently, what if the Avengers never were, which featured the death of Iron Man and sort of how the remaining Avengers dealt with that. But we just saw what if Iron Man died, and what if all the, you know, what a crazy iterations. And there, you know, there's even that I remember like it was all the what ifs had a main story and then a little story at the end. And sometimes the little stories were even crazier than the main sort of story. And one of them was what if Spider-Man was Doctor Strange, and that's an upcoming episode. Those little cool things like that.
Right.
I love that stuff. I want to talk for a minute though about the orientation video.
From Miss
Right. When Loki first gets arrested and he's put through the processing and the little Indiana Jones tickets please moment.
Yeah.
You know, but so I got the biggest, I don't know if this was for anybody else, but I got the biggest Jurassic Park vibes. This video,
Mr. DNA.
Fantastic. And then, you know, and the trick that we noticed in The Mandalorian and Disney's carrying it through, we switch aspect ratios for it. Go to 4:3 so that it looks like we're watching something from the
TV.
90s.
Yeah.
Square box. So much happened. So much, you know, like we get that. Wow, that's,
there we go.
You guys are amazing. So just the idea that she lays it all out on all everything like right out there. So she lays it all out. This is why you've been arrested, because you've done something you're not supposed to, and that's something that you're not supposed to. Let's talk about this for a second. The Nexus event,
right?
Okay. So really, this is serious. So the first time, I mean, we all have heard the word Nexus. We've all been nerds our whole lives, and we know what a Nexus is, a little intersection in space time.
Yeah,
but there's a sort of a deeper carry through here with the, like, in terms of the MCU, because there's a commercial for Nexus products in WandaVision, episode 5.
Yeah.
And Wanda's also what's considered inside 616. She's considered a Nexus being, which means that she's charged, whether she likes it or not, she's charged with protecting the multiverse from threats outside reality. The idea that things are bigger than anything that could be contained in all the universes at once. Things like He Who Remains.
Yeah, I mean, the implications of that definitely point to she'll be a heavy hitter going forward in Phase 4.
Absolutely, and I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit at the end but there's a moment that fans have found, and I wish I was the fan that found it, but there's a moment that fans have found that where things sync up between those two shows that makes me think that there's so much, such a deeper thing going on here that's actually, super excited.
We have that clip, eh?
We do, yeah. I guess we could play it now.
It's up to you.
We've all seen the show. We're gonna play this clip for a sec, guys.
Terrible, horrific things.
Just like.
But now,
you have a chance to do them for a good reason. You just crossed the threshold.
Wow.
No, it's okay. I was going to say that's an interesting clip when we were previewing it before the show. And I said to Andy, I said, are we to infer that those events are happening simultaneously?
Yes.
Yeah.
It goes a little further. I've seen a version where it goes slightly a bit further. And then when Agatha begins to use her power, there's like a purple cloud that appears behind Kang. And then there's a moment when he drops an object on his desk because he doesn't know what's about to happen. He's just experimenting for the first time ever. And it's when Agatha hits the ground at the same time the thing he drops hits the desk. And it's just like, is that an accident? How could that be? Like the lines in the beginning of that sync up. They say the same line. It's crazy, man. Crazy.
Well, that's definitely that's some serious sleuthing.
You got to ask yourself if that means that when we see at the end of WandaVision, when we see one Wanda reading the book and we see the other Wanda, the Darkhold, and the other, Wanda just doing her thing, are there actually two Wandas there?
Oh my God, you just hurt my brain.
Yeah, it's crazy. So crazy.
Initial thoughts, it was just astral.
I just assumed it was astral projecting the same way that Strange
did we, just like Strange, right? And that's the idea. Yeah, that thought was like, wow.
But I wouldn't discount that as a possible theory. Like, really,
can't take it off the
not
table
in the
now.
grand scheme of things. No.
Best episode? What you guys think about? What was your favorite episode? Any thoughts like that? Concentrated into one.
Oh my gosh. See, again, we went through this on our Star Wars review and how we talked about certain episodes played better if you watch them back to back. And I think Loki as a whole works better. I broke it up into 2 viewings on my repeat. So 1 to 3 and 4 to 6.
Right.
And 4 to 6 collectively, I think are they work really well together. But if I had to if I had to go just for one, 5 Journey into Mystery, when we're in what is it, the Ever After, the Void, and all the things that happen within the Void. That's where the bulk of the Easter eggs are, and that's where it just seems to be the most weird.
Yeah, and definitely you get your big explanations there. You get to see this where because the idea that time ends, and then when it ends, it just starts over again, and the exact same things happen. I had this argument, or I guess a discussion with people online at the end of Endgame, saying that was a time loop, and then the creators came out and said, no, it's not a time loop, it's a time branch. But I was convinced it was a loop, like that always, you know what I mean, like. And so now we sort of have confirmed that the big thing is always a loop, but that branch was always supposed to happen and weave around it. So interesting now that that with all these branches is what happens at the end of time, or do each branch have an end of time that loops back on itself, and so that there are consistent chaos, consistent chaos throughout the galaxy or multiverse.
I don't know, maybe.
Well, the ancient one described it as dead timelines with nowhere to go once you remove one certain aspect.
Right, because the future right.
And that's a wholly different understanding than the way that it's being presented now.
Well, it directly contradicts what Doctor Strange says in the Spider-Man trailer, saying we know almost nothing about the multiverse.
The multiversal concept.
Right.
Yeah. So wait, if the Ancient One talks about just things ending, does that mean that there's multiple, I guess technically, yes, multiple voids?
Maybe.
And then
maybe that's in some way, even though she's sort of an advanced being, level here on Earth, or 616 or 19999 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's just that's her way of trying to explain it, because it's so it's such a beyond thing. you start to get into these power levels of characters that are outside time and reality. You know, you have this idea that Galactus is a crazy powerful character because he eats worlds and stuff, but that's just eating worlds.
Yeah,
you know, it's just eating billions of people and all their, you know, that happens. I guess Kang the Conqueror,
it's Tuesday,
conquered every known split in the multiverse.
Yeah, like all reality.
You know, like you have these characters that are beyond this god level. Like, you know, one of my actual favorite little lines is Mobius references the nightmare department. She's like, I'll help you burn that to the ground.
Oh yeah.
This whole other, because there's this like pantheon of, I won't say gods, because gods are like way down here with the Norse, you know, Hercules and Thor and stuff. And you have this pantheon of beings like death and ego, and you know, we're just getting into that crazy level of the Marvel universe that I've always loved. I always loved how just mental Stan Lee and Jack Kirby got in the 60s, like unchecked craziness. That's so fun.
Yeah, we start now. We're getting what we've got Eternals coming up, and What If has touched on even the previous phases have touched on Celestials, and I can't help but think that they are going to make a return. You know, as a
possible threat.
Yeah, as a antagonist, not antagonist. Yeah. So like you say, like these power levels that are so far above and beyond mortal comprehension. And I mean, Kang is obviously, you know, right up there with them. So
right up, and I mean that just the idea too that Kang leads to, you know, this Doctor Doom or any of these other, you know, I do have theories about who that actually is at the end of the episode. We'll get when we get to the end of the you know, our review sort of. I want to talk about who that guy might be.
Of course,
He Who Remains. Andy, favorite episode?
I'm with Wes on this one. Journey into Mystery. There was just so much visual stuff to see and take in during that episode, and it's like, oh, so good.
I had to watch it twice before I picked up the Yellow Jacket, the giant Yellow Jacket helmet.
Yeah, the Living Tribunal. Did you see the Living Tribunal's head?
I missed that.
I missed that too.
Also, another great Easter egg, the Living Tribunal. There's so like, I mean, we should talk about all the Easter eggs in there in a sec too. I'm sort of like you in the first part of that, Wes, which is I couldn't decide between 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah,
so they're a fantastic 3-hour movie.
They work really well together.
So I couldn't really choose. Like 4 blew my mind because we were just in a totally different direction.
Yeah,
you get 2 major characters ostensibly killed.
Oh yeah,
we don't know any different. You know, we get an after credit scene in 4, which is and then the internet sensation of the variant Lokis.
Right,
I want to see a whole movie with Richard E. Grant as Loki, like a whole movie. Fantastic, underused in Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, totally,
talented actor. You know, and then 5 was like just mayhem. I couldn't stop, like with the Easter eggs, like just mayhem, and then the finale, the presence of He Who Remains, just like that performance, like he's in it for, you know, 40 minutes of 6 hours, and he steals the show.
So quirky this version, or He Who, I don't want to say this version of Kang, He Who Remains. We'll call him that because that's sort of his distinct personality.
We'll call him Grogu. We'll call him Grogu.
so quirky.
Whereas,
like,
you know,
almost
Josh Brolin's Thanos is like this dominant
big
presence, but He Who Remains, he's got charisma.
He does have charisma, but I also feel like he's slightly unhinged. Do you know what I mean? And I guess if you frame it from the I've been managing multiple or keeping reality stitched together for time immemorial, you might be a little unhinged too. No wonder the guy's looking for retirement. Like, like every time he does one of these, like, I'm just like, oh, there is some serious stuff going on there.
Yeah, and there's a scene where he switches from, you know, like when I'm the one who tamed Goliath, and you're just like, well, he just did a John Goodman there.
Yeah.
I don't think there's an actor in Hollywood that scares me like John Goodman.
As in like 10 Cloverfield Lane, John Goodman.
Oh man, yeah. Or well, I mean, just anything. Like when he's not Dan from Roseanne, he's a mighty man.
What was the one with Denzel Washington, Fallen?
Yeah.
He does Fallen, a really good scary role in that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Anything suck for you guys? Worst episode?
So I definitely have things that I didn't like or that made me go, huh?
Yeah.
But if I had, oh man, I'm not sure that maybe my least favorite episode might in fact be episode 1, Divine Purpose. Yeah. And honestly, and I'm saying that only because I'm putting it to like I have to pick one. So if I had to pick one, it's probably that one. But the reality is like they're all like 1 to 3 kind of work as a like that's where I took my break. 1 to 3 kind of work together.
Right.
4 to 6 work together.
No, I agree with that one.
It just maybe 1 because it's the one where I was like, oh, we're gonna get villain Loki, and then it's like, oh, we're not. Right. Yeah. And maybe that's the reason why I'm saying that, but that doesn't mean that it was bad. It just means that it's not doing what I thought it would do, and that's my problem.
Andy?
So,
yeah. I didn't really have a worst episode. Overall, there was nothing that really stuck out as being bad to me. Quite enjoyable.
No, I guess if I had to pick one, if I was forced to, I'd have to say episode 3, Lamentus, and it's just because I actually thought they were going someplace way weirder there, and episode 4 fixed that for me because Mobius sort of self-references the thing that made me. So if we have, we'll talk about the cringy thing in a bit, but the emotional bond that Loki starts to make ostensibly with himself, and I was really super worried that this was going to become a romantic comedy.
Oh, I never got that vibe at first.
I was really worried that we were going to get this. Like that's what the whole rest of this thing is going to be about, their relationship. And I was instantly not worried when Mobius is interrogating him and saying, you're breaking reality by being like, and so they're self-referencing. They're explaining what the whole point of that was, and it's not. I was like, oh, if that's what they're doing, I'm not interested. I prefer my Marvel universe to be a little less. I don't know what, but I mean, I certainly was surprised by. It's still a thread. There's still a thread of that, but it's not the main focus, which I was super worried about.
Lamentus was the episode where I actually thought, you talk about 2 main characters being dead. And I actually thought, okay, like, how are they going to... if anything, Lamentus had me going, like, wanting to get to the next one, because it's like, how are they going to escape this planet that's about to, like, explode? And that, I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, no, and it's only moments, right? I mean, like, there's so many moments that were better than anything I was worried about.
Yeah, sure.
So, it's almost a worst moment, not really a worst episode.
I guess so, yeah, sure. We could segue right into moments.
Yeah, let's do that.
Want to do that? Okay.
Favorite moment. I have a couple. I have a couple. Somebody else go first. Andy, your turn.
Favorite moment. My favorite moment is in episode 5 when they're in the bunker. All the rest of the variants have showed up, and boastful Loki, he's like, I'm going to claim the throne.
Oh yeah.
And President Loki's like, no, I'm going to claim the throne. And then the rest of them are like, no. And it's just all out madness as they all turn on each other. That moment where it's like,
that was a lot of fun.
What does he say? You righteous bastards or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Might even be a nod to what's about to happen, the multiversal war, where, all versions of one person are competing to see who's the Rickest Rick, if you will, if you watch Rick and Morty.
Who's the superior Loki, as he was fond of saying.
And that carrot is dangled as a thread throughout, too.
Yeah.
Mobius is sort of trying to psychoanalyze him and tease him with that. There's a Loki who's better than you. You're just this other Loki. Wes, best moment?
I've got a few things that really I liked. I'm going to lead with this one, which is also going to come up on my thing that I didn't like. Was back in episode 1 in what is it, Glorious Purpose. There's a throwaway line essentially where Mobius insults one of the guards in French.
Yep.
And the guard comes back in French and he's like, I speak all the languages in the timeline too. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's cool. Everybody can speak every known language. And then they never go back to it.
No.
They never. So I'm like, well, that's kind of disappointing. So that's a high moment and a low for me because I'm like, oh, cool. Everybody can speak everything. That's cool. And then I'm not going to lie, as weird as it sounds, I actually had a moment of like, that's cool when they finally accepted that, or they accepted that they love each other.
Right.
I like that. I thought that was very cool that Loki finally, after getting, the realization, and as he says in the final episode, I can't be trusted, and then finally has that moment where, or especially after the thing with Sif, where he's like, I'm alone. And she's like, and you always will be. And suddenly he's not alone anymore. The recognition that they have feelings for each other means he really isn't alone.
Yeah. It's more about self-love too, in a way.
Yeah. So I really like that. I could probably cherry pick highlights from every episode, but like those are two of the biggest standouts for me. Yeah.
DB Cooper.
Oh yeah.
DB Cooper. I nearly crapped myself on the couch. I was like, that's amazing. And I was actually hoping that there would be like a little Forrest Gump moment like that in every episode.
How many
did he invent new Coke or like something crazy? Yeah, but for me that was amazing. And then the other one certainly is the cliffhanger from episode 4, the after credit scene with the variant Lokis. And I have to admit, I went ape over poop for that too.
I think that was a lot of people like that. I mean, it was a lot of fun it
wasn't spoiled for me either. I didn't, I was trying to steer clear of the hype and stuff. So it's one of those things that wasn't spoiled for me.
It'd just be short-sighted to think that we weren't going to see other versions of these characters. And, in a show called Loki, we definitely got our fair share of them.
And it starts this weird, like I had this, because then you get President Loki and all the Lokis and none of, and I be a Rick and Morty fan. I keep referencing that, but it's important that Michael Waldron is the guy that's running this show too.
Yeah.
All the Ricks look alike. There are slight variations, and there are universes where like one guy's a saw and one guy's a hammer. Those kind of strange things. But for the most part, all the Ricks look alike. All the Mortys look alike. All the other characters look alike. Right. There are slight differences. Mostly it's hairstyles. Just to sort of quickly identify them. And I was like, what are the logistics though of a Loki of color? Like, do you go back? Do you go back so I started thinking, how do you get Black Hank, right? Is it my grandfather, this, like that interaction, but it results in the same person, the same soul, the same personality, but a minor change way down the line results in a sort of what would be considered a major change, but really is only aesthetic. Like
if we were more akin to canine DNA, where recessive traits from several generations can turn up at any time, and suddenly you've got a dog who's got a Chihuahua for a parent, comes out the size of a German Shepherd, right? Like
right.
Yeah.
It was just a neat line of thinking, neat little thought, because they could have easily done this sort of Clone Wars type, just CGI a bunch of Tom Hiddleston's fighting.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that would have been a waste of a moment, really.
No, because there was so much variation there.
I actually thought from the marketing, I actually thought that President Loki was the main guy, and I'm like, oh, how does he get to that? And I never occurred to me that version of Tom Hiddleston was another variant. I just assumed something through the story got him to this point where
President Loki.
Oh, okay, he's going to be the president.
There's and then another nod to the comics, and one I had to investigate because again I sort of stopped reading a lot of Marvel except for the main sort of stuff I was interested in. There's a storyline where he literally becomes candidate for president of the United States, and his platform is literally, I'm going to lie to you openly, but so I'm not going to lie to you like the politicians lie to you. I'm going to lie to you openly, and you're going to do what I tell you. You're going to vote me for president of the United States.
Oh. Wow.
I'm waiting for the next one. Any moments that rip you out of it? Anything strange? Cringiest moments?
Yeah, I guess I can go first on this one too, because this is the thing that bothers me the most, and I really have to put it in. I got to take it in stride because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, maybe it shouldn't be as an issue with me as it is. But Loki, as we know him through the first 3 phases of the MCU, requires no less than 4 films to complete his journey from asshole villain to sympathetic, maybe could come around. And I know that the show is constrained by the number of hours it has, but he makes that journey from 2012 jerk face to sympathetic character in such a short period of time that I'm like, it's a bit of a stretch for me. And I know Andy and I had talking we're speaking sort of pre-show about how, you know, as Andy put it, what greatest hits you called it? Yeah. When he's in the theater room and he's watching all these events of the main timeline and he's having this, and I get that that's the thing that gets him there because we have to get him there. But I would have preferred his transition from jerk to sympathetic to be more experiential and more, I don't want to say organic, I guess, not force fed through a series of vignettes. That's the one thing I had an issue with.
It sort of makes sense in terms of that. If we're going to quickly evolve him, we have to figure out a way to show him exactly how he evolved before very quickly. And
yeah, that's exactly it.
He does break down in a way that you don't get to see him. Like you get Thor breaking down when he dies.
He never has that moment to mourn what he did.
There's a really nice piece of acting there where he witnesses his own death and then falls to pieces. I mean, even more so, like he rewinds the scene with his mom, but he literally goes, "Oh, this is real." You know, when it goes end of file and it's like that, almost like the film ring sound.
Yeah.
He has this moment that, okay, everything I thought about myself before, and this is like a lesson he didn't even learn, sympathetically becoming the guy who does, you know, tries to save the universe. This is he learns these, you know, these deep lessons, and he's still alive. He's outside. He can never go back. What's your fate now? The fact that I'm a god, the fact that I can do anything I want anywhere I want is over.
That idea of
it's an existential crisis for a character who can't have existential crisis.
Right. Well, I was just going to say, what does a god do when they're faced with their own mortality?
And it's almost like in I don't know if I want the Karen syndrome. It's like when I was having this discussion with a friend the other day, when people get into their 30s but have never been checked.
Right.
Never had any adversity, never had anybody tell them that they needed to correct their behavior or they've done something wrong or something. They get in an office and then the boss is like, this TPA report is absolute garbage. I need you to do it again. And she starts weeping.
Yeah.
She has an irrational response to because she's never been checked. And that's sort of what Loki is having here now. He's having an irrational response to being shown his own death. And that's never going to occur for him. Some other kind of death is going to occur for him.
Right. Because he's a variant.
Yeah.
He's
out. You know what? That might be one of my favorite moments of the show.
Interesting.
Neat.
The end result, don't get me wrong, because the end result of him, as you say, we have to develop him in the same way that he was developed over the course of those 4, 5, 6 movies. Right, and we have to do it in under 6 hours. I get it. And I totally like the end result. It's just it just felt force fed and it was really, really fast. I would have liked to have seen that play out a little bit longer. Like, I mean, you could have drawn that out right into the second season.
Yeah. Even that, though, I mean, he almost completely recants once he meets the variant and they go through the portal to Lamentus. They have that conversation with, like, Mobius is like, "You're a bad friend." I thought,
yeah.
He's like, "You've literally stabbed 50 people." Well, I'm not going to do it again. He's still fighting with that. Like, that's his. And they recur. This is a recurring theme. That's your nature. That's your nature.
Right.
That's your nature. And even He Who Remains says at the end, "You're a gnat riding a snake. How you got here? Like, everything you do is your nature."
Right.
And that now that we're past, I don't know what's going to happen. Now is your chance to evolve. Are you going to kill me? Are you going to be what you've always wanted to be? And it's
yeah.
Andy, you got a cringy there?
Not so much cringy, but my least favorite moment was in episode 4 where he gets pruned.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what the hell are you doing? We've got 4 episodes in and you're taking him away now.
Yeah.
Okay, I get there's variants, but
crap out of me.
Yeah. How you got to end it like that?
Which was
And I like,
right?
yeah, I like the fact that they didn't wait till the next week. They gave you that after credit tease, and it's like, okay, I can do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Right.
They
Yeah.
probably did a test screening and went, no, people might check out. What the hell did you do? What the hell did you do?
Yeah.
I already kind of sort of talked about mine, which was that on Lamentus, they're googly eyesing each other, and I thought we were going in a completely different direction that I wasn't going to be happy with. And then the way it was handled was perfect. So I'm almost recanting the fact that I harped on that too much, because I didn't mind the blanket cuddle, and I didn't mind the kiss at the end. It was that I thought they were setting up like a rom-com here. Something like it's still in context, still looking for Kang, still trying to beat the timekeepers, but through the lens of like this, and we might get a subtle relationship moving forward into season 2, but I'm glad that it's not the main focus.
Yeah, I thought they did pretty good on that. There was a whole lot of, and I mean, I think as adults who've been in romantic relationships and navigating the courtship process, how much goes unsaid but is transmitted body language and posturing and just things that are the in between the words, right? And they did that very, very well.
And I saw in an article someone said that Tom Hiddleston could pull off a sexy scene with a wooden stool. They could have chemistry with a blackboard. So that's kind of that's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about Sylvie.
There
Sophie
she is.
DeMarco.
Yep.
So when she first appeared in that first episode, I guess the second episode, the variant.
Yeah.
We see her do a few things that we're like, we're led down a road, and by the end, what I've settled upon is that she's an amalgam of 3 characters, and for the MCU that really works.
Was it not already sort of confirmed that she is a hodgepodge of the Enchantress and Loki?
Well, yeah, but it wasn't so. It was left a mystery until they sort of showed her backstory in the beginning of episode 4. There's a lot of speculation, especially on the internet. I was convinced because you both heard me go on and on about how I was convinced that Enchantress was involved. in the WandaVision show. Yeah. I thought for sure that she was the Enchantress and not Loki.
Okay.
But there's another character that Loki. I think it's Brixton, Oklahoma. It's actually the hometown, I believe, of Mark Gruenwald, who's the Mobius character is based on. But at one point in the comics, Loki rebuilds Asgard right on top of this town, and just for fun, he gives this character Sylvie Lawton, I can't remember her last name, gives her superpowers, gives her the powers of the Enchantress, and she becomes this new the Enchantress. Her name is Sylvie. So I thought right away, as soon as they named her, I thought, okay, this is that version.
Yeah.
There's also a comic, and it's like almost like a one-shot, but where Loki sort of like makes a version of himself and then impregnates himself, and they have like then he puts his consciousness into the body of a woman, and it's a very convoluted sort of She-Loki kind of tale. It's not very, it's not the same. Do you know anything about that, Andy? That version?
I never read it, but I did hear about it.
Yeah. So, and then there's the straight idea that she just could be the female Loki, which
just a straight up variant.
Just a straight up variant. So there's a certain amount of, it was some fun speculation. She has the ability to enchant people. Her name is Sylvie, but then she dresses like a Loki. What are you giving us? And I guess we get to learn.
Well, can we just talk about the context, her character, the context of, because the early on, like we talked about, what is a Nexus event and this convergence or divergence of time and space, and so you really kind of, as I'm rewatching it with my wife, and we're talking about like, what's her crime, what's her Nexus event, and her Nexus event is quite literally being born.
Now, isn't that a great, and Lauren was talking about, isn't that a great sort of metaphor for the struggle that women have been going through in modern society? literally, countries like China and stuff, where like that's,
Yep.
it's not a crime, but it's certainly punishable by crazy taxes. And
well, I mean, look at
other,
what we're, Afghanistan is another one where
Islamic states where they have
yeah,
extreme versions of quite a beautiful religion, but they've twisted it into this, so, and there we see young Sylvie. I got I guess a little Easter egg here, played by, you guys might remember this.
I never would have made that connection that those are the same people.
No.
That's quite a few years. She's probably 3 or 4 there.
Right.
Probably 3 or 4. But the idea that her crime was nothing but being born female, and that what was it that stopped the TVA from just taking her at birth? What so like
isn't that sort of the appropriate follow-up question? It's like they show up to get her, she's sitting there playing with toys on the stairs, and it's like
playing with a Valkyrie doll. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Valkyrie doll.
And why now? Why as a toddler? Why not?
Right.
I don't know.
Maybe hers was just a slow going branch, because they do say,
they
let her go until it became an issue.
Oh, until it starts the red line.
Yeah.
I guess that's literal red line.
That's a good point, because classic Loki spent 20 years on a planet just pondering.
Indeed.
Once he had the thought, I'd need to go see Thor, that's when they grabbed him. So perhaps if you aren't, you can sit still enough or be less of, make not so much wake. Right.
Yeah. So they do talk about the speed, and we see that. We see it in the Ancient One's explanation of branch timelines, and then again in several shots in the show, we see these branches, and they do grow at different speeds. Yeah,
that's right. Like when they finally realize that they're have an emotional connection, the two Lokis on Lamentis, that is a very quickly sharp
yeah
from the timeline, and goes like, almost like that's, well, I mean, even in episode 4, Mobius says, you're breaking the timeline, you're breaking me right now. Like that's such a diverse, two people that are the same person, but they're in love with one another. So it's kind of, it's real cool.
What's funny is that it's the whole the boys from Brazil thing and nature versus nurture, and we can say they're the same people, but they're really not. Do you know what I mean? Like there's such a divergence in their
a lifetime of experience.
Right.
It informs who they become, for sure.
Of course.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, she's still a child too. She views the world very, I have the single sort of point of focus. I'm going to take down the TVA, the people who, stole my life. Then ostensibly I can go on to have a life, where Loki is like, I want to control the universe. Like, he's a megalomaniac. She's just like, almost like a Punisher style anti-hero.
He's had the benefit of growing up in the shadow of his brother, and living in the Asgardian palace, and having all of the trappings of royalty, where she doesn't even remember her mother. Right. Stole the Tempad and got out at the same age that she was arrested, and then spends the rest of her life running from Nexus event to Nexus event to stay hidden.
Right.
All with the revenge sort of drive behind that. Yeah. Two totally different characterizations for the same
finale, being. Right? Like Loki is the one that steps in and says, stop and think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
With her singular revenge purpose is just, she can't get past that.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Clearly she's got it, and that's, we have yet to see what the fallout of that's going to be, but
I get the intent that she immediately regretted it, because she falls to the floor, and we cut away, she's in sadness.
People who are so driven, we've seen the trope before in different media where people are singular of purpose, and then they achieve that goal. What's left?
Yeah,
really, what's left?
It's a huge problem in amateur sports, where you have athletes peak at 14, 15 years old.
Oh yeah,
you win a gold medal when you're 13 at the Olympics, and then how are you going to ever top that? So it sets up your life to be this, you're chasing something. I can only imagine, but I've heard I've read articles on the psychology of it, and that people are like, they can be broken by an event that's so fantastic, so young, that you can't ever top it. How are you ever going to top it? Yeah. Living in the shadow of yourself.
Yeah.
As you age away from it. Favorite recurring character?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
I know the show's called Loki, but I want to say Mobius. I like Mobius. I like that he's this. I can't help but notice that there's like little bits of Columbo in there. You know. Oh, and one more question. I just like the way that he's like, you know, and pardon the pun, but he's like the literal blue collar, like brown shirt or brown suit wearing, you know, guy who's just, he may not be the best, you know, cop in the precinct, but he works so hard and is just so persistent that he gets results over this, you know, lifetime of doing it. Right. I don't think he's a great investigator. I just think he's been doing it for so long that that's why he's good. And then the fact that, you know, he's got this thing about jet skis and the realization is his realization that, you know, when he finally comes around to the idea that, oh, we are variants, but he's still trying to do his job.
Yeah. I'm going to leave him up on the screen and go next because he's also my favorite recurring character in the show. And man, I say, wow. I love the character, and I don't know if he's Dennis Hopper's official love child, but wow, does he ever look like Dennis Hopper? It's crazy, sure. Actually. It's crazy. One of my favorite actors going, actually, and so another guy that could probably have chemistry with a wine glass, you know, like to watch these two guys actually work off of one another is some of the best stuff I've seen recently in anything. Watching them, you know, there's a line, I think it's episode 1 where Loki says something, you know, and he's, oh, big metaphor guy, eh? Oh wow, yeah. Makes you sound super smart. You know, I am smart. Yeah. Oh, of course you are. I know. And it's that and to have chemistry like that as an actor, it's, you know, like little subtle.
That's the Columbo thing coming through.
Fantastic stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Andy?
I'm going with Loki, main version Loki.
Can we call him Loki Prime?
Loki Prime.
Loki Prime.
There he is.
Yeah, he's got that look at me.
Yeah. Got the jacket turned up. And
you watching my show? Look at me.
Fantastic. I mean,
what more can you say about that, though? Really, like the whole thing's about him.
He delivers on every level.
Oh yeah,
and
he goes from. I mean, there's moments where he's weeping, where you're like, oh, I don't want to cry, Tom. What you doing?
Right.
He's actually, you know, he gets you in the. We're watching a comic book villain, so ostensibly a what if, you know, a 6 hour, you know,
a 6 hour what if,
it gets you in the feels. He, you know, he's actually really. I really hope that some of these top notch actors aren't pigeonholed too much. And that we get to see them do some other stuff. I really hope that for a few of the actors, and Tom Hiddleston certainly one of those actors. Anybody that you were like, get off the screen? I can't think of anyone. Even in The Mandalorian, that one waitress, I was like, I could do that, but I can't. There's nothing here that rubbed me the wrong way in terms of a performance.
No, me neither. Actually, you know. Throwaway one, the girl from the Renaissance Fair. Hey, you guys, you're dressed wrong.
Okay.
I need this. Okay. Yeah, shut up. You can get out of here.
All right. Yeah, fair enough.
The girl from the Renaissance Fair, you're out.
Fair enough. So I guess we go like now, you know, favorite variant.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that. Where'd we put that? I hid that here somewhere.
Well, it's under recurring and variant.
Is it? Oh, yeah, I'll leave it up there. Leave that up there. Oh, variant. Sylvie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Sylvie. I mean, it's as much her story as it is his. So, I mean, yeah,
that's
for sure.
Very true. That's actually very, that's a good point.
Yeah, definitely Sylvie. I think that's easy to make that connection sort of on the heels of that whole, you know, their lives being so divergent, you know, like talking about, you know, what crime did she commit and her life on the run. And of course, we only get that through exposition, but even like her interaction with Hunter, whose number I can't recall, they're having drinks and she's trying to C20 trying to pull the information out of her. The fact that she knows that everybody is a variant, and she's trying to expose that. Man, that's a really, really tough undertaking.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Sylvie for sure.
Cool. Andy?
Favorite variant? I'm gonna go with the classic Loki. If there was one character that I would want to watch more of, it's him.
Yeah,
give me his adventures from like the end of Endgame. Give me him floating through space.
That's a great shot, by the way.
Showing me, yeah, man, what a great actor. Totally underused, like I was saying in the Rise of Skywalker. I thought he was going to be some like Thrawn-like villain.
He's definitely got the presence for it.
Man, yeah. Also, I got to say, Andy, yeah, totally my favorite variant. There's a scene, and I question whether the cape was CG'd or not, but they're in the young Loki's throne room, if you will, and he does this flare with his cape when he sits down.
I know the scene you're talking about. Yeah,
he just does this kind of like old, I don't know what it is, like a vampire. I don't know. It's
almost like what a old timey stage magician would do when they're weaving around.
And it's just so perfect. And I don't know if that was CG to be that perfect, but what a beautiful scene. And then actually watching him wield more power than any Loki's ever seen a Loki wield power before. And then have our main Loki speculate like, we have no idea how powerful we are. Holy cow. Because he literally conjures all of Asgard. What a crazy scene. And like you say, I could watch a 6-hour show about classic Loki. I'd definitely watch an MCU movie about classic Loki, or even an older version of the classic Avengers versus classic. Wow, we could go cool here. Okay, I guess we're down to Easter eggs.
Did you want to talk about least favorites?
Did you have any? Did anybody hate the alligator?
I didn't. I certainly didn't hate the alligator. I mean, see, this is the thing. Now that we know that every person within the TVA is a variant, or at least we can presume they're variants, I almost want to say Judge Renslayer is my least favorite, just for being a not nice person. But I mean, if her spot within the TVA really is more intrinsically linked to her comic book incarnation, then that statement is not true. But if we presume that she's a variant, then she's not really really nice. She's Loki's version of the character from The Matrix who wants to get plugged back in. I don't care. She just wants to believe I want it to be status quo all the time because reasons. Don't want to look at the truth.
Because reasons.
Yeah. Predicated on the idea that she is a variant, I'd say she's my least favorite. Just because she's the villain that you don't want to like anyway.
That's right. I don't think I had a least favorite. And I mean, certainly the villains, you need to dislike them as a character. And watching her plot against, I thought there was sort of, I don't know if you guys got the vibe, but that there was like a past romantic interest between her and Mobius, maybe, or some sort of, they were kind of flirting a bit, and he made comments about, do you have other analysts? Where'd this pen come from? And things of that nature.
That's true. I took that wasn't at the forefront of my mind. I got more of the beat cops when they have a partner, longtime partner. I thought maybe they were partners, and I thought I thought that she has basically taken credit for all of his work, and she's risen on his, because all the I don't want to call them trophies, but everything around the room, he makes references to the roller skate, and like these are all jobs that he's done, and she's keeping the trophies. Right. So like I feel like she's sort of on his back. She's risen on his back is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It does make sense too in the overall scheme of things. If he who remains is he who we believe he is, and he is, that she's handpicked, that she's there for a reason, whether she remembers it or not, or whether he just picked a version of her who would get the job done the best. She explains in early on in the show that I think it's even Mobius is like, "What's your purpose?" And she's like, "Well, I carry out the timekeeper's will. He controls the timeline. I control the parts of the timeline he lets me control on his behalf." So she's doing a lot of the legwork, right? Like she's the one executing prune orders.
And I
Let's
feel
not
like
forget that while we're pruning people, we're also pruning entire realities.
That's right. And that's another thing I want to talk about too. But where she's concerned, you get the impression that she knows more than what she's telling. She's intentionally keeping stuff from Mobius.
Yeah.
I get that impression anyway.
Well, it's not
There's
even
a
an
weird-
impression. She hides the fact that C20 has been pruned.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, she's
100%.
dead.
Yeah. So I mean, that just brings into question her morality and what else has she kept from him and for how long and what else is she doing?
This is a weird scene too, where her and Miss Minutes are talking, and Sylvie's like, they've struck a bargain, and they're looking for files on the end of time, and she mentions the time. What about the time spaceship? And it's like, is that code for I'm going to delay while I call the guards in? Like,
Yeah.
Because they seem to have this familiar banter about it, but I thought that the actress shot the cartoon character a look of like, shut the frig up, don't say anything about the time ship.
Yeah.
And time ship is all, for me, that's like some Reed Richards stuff right there, like a craft that can travel beyond the void.
You're right.
We dipped so closely to these other properties, like,
again though, I mean, we've all talked about sort of the long game in all of our review series about there is a long game, and we know, like, with the reversion of the film rights coming back to Marvel, that there is a certain fan demand to reintroduce these characters in an MCU style and to deliver what maybe Fox couldn't have done with those characters.
This week I've heard rumors about Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart returning.
I believe I have also heard similar. Yeah.
Let's move on to Easter eggs, because there's a billion of them, and I don't know if I want to just list them off. I mean, let's just talk about anything that really, really stuck out at you. I mean, you could give your favorite list if you want. Absolutely. Easter eggs from maybe the comic books.
Yeah, comic book Easter eggs. Well, see, that puts me kind of right out. So obviously for me, the classic Loki, that one, I mean, immediately recognizable. I'm like, well, that's a nice nod. So for me, that's probably it.
My favorite comic book Easter egg, we got a shot of it here, but it's a blink and you'll miss it moment as they're panning down through the earth on the void.
Oh, right.
And you get Thor as a frog in a jar trying to escape. Frog of thunder.
Yes, sir.
Throg. I like that it's Hemsworth's voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the fact that they put T365 on the label,
right? Which is the episode, right? Which is the comic book.
Yeah.
365, which is the issue of Thor that Thor gets turned into a frog by Loki. It's also referenced in Ragnarok.
Yes,
in the play. He apologizes to him for, I'm sorry,
for turning him into
Ben Affleck or whatever. Yeah. Matt Damon. Yeah. Fantastic. Trying to break through to get to the hammer too. You know, the other thing you don't really understand, but the TVA prunes all their garbage, because even in this spot you can see.
Is that TVA what we're looking at?
Food trays from the TVA. They prune their garbage. Very efficient. Ask Thanos.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah.
Also ask Rick and Morty, because there's that one episode on the Citadel and they're just dumping all their garbage into the
that's right,
into the warp hole.
Let's talk about the pruning thing here for a second now that we're on that, because I want to talk about the look of the void and why does the void look like 20th century, mid-aughts Earth, when we know that we've already visited 2030 in our show. And we've gone as far back as the 15th century. We don't see any other trappings of those time periods in the void.
There's Loki getting pruned. I don't have shots of sort of what the void looks like necessarily. Maybe it's a lot to do with where He Who Remained stepped out of the timeline.
Because they talk about not only pruning, like you say, not only pruning people, but they also talk about pruning the matter or the stuff that's left over from the event. And you have entire city blocks.
Yeah, entire timelines. He talks about he says it consumes entire timelines, and perhaps this is part of the timeline. Like, certainly as we approach, the void. That's a good question.
I don't know why we don't see other things like 15th century France, or we don't see. How come there's not a bunch of Asgardian relics laying there? Like when they reset.
Perhaps maybe it's like a Dewey Decimal System. All these similar events get,
I guess so,
dumped in, in sort of almost a chronological order.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lauren was asking me, why do I think Kid Loki's in charge of the Void? And I thought, well,
yeah, that's a good question.
Maybe he's been there a long time. And she was like, no, I think you age in the Void. And I was like, at the end of the time, do you age? I don't know. I don't think you age in the TVA, which is outside of time.
As they keep saying, time moves differently. Yeah.
They're literally sort of, you get the impression when you look back on it that like Mobius is hunting Loki's.
Loki's plural. Yeah.
Loki's plural to try to find this one Loki. And so maybe these guys were pruned recently. Maybe the reason that there's all kinds of Lokis here is because all these Lokis were pruned recently. And maybe the first one to be pruned being probably Sophie, that's her real name, Sylvie. Maybe Kid Loki was pruned second, and therefore
Well, it's funny though if we look at it through that lens, and you have that the loose collection of them, Kid Loki, classic alligator, Scottish Loki, I guess. You notice that they're a small crew, and then when everybody else shows up, it's a much larger crew. What did they do to be apart from the rest of them?
Well, they're not the Loki that was supposed to get killed by Thanos, clearly. So these are all versions of Loki that should have been eliminated at birth, ostensibly.
I guess so, yeah.
It causes some crazy questions in my multiverse. They start to cascade.
Yeah.
What's that guy with the football helmet?
The guy with the motorcycle handlebars.
Well, they do say
that,
that Kid Classic, Gator, and Boastful
are
the ones that tried to be different. They didn't just succumb to their nature. They wanted to be better.
They tried to
whereas
evolve.
The rest of them just went right on down the I'm gonna rule path.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So, but alternatively, as why you wouldn't see so much of like other planets and whatnot, they do say the biggest target is what Eliath is going to go right after. And he is destroying time, space, and matter. Yeah. So a big chunk falls in front of him. He goes after it.
Yeah.
And whatever's left is like minuscule chunks.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And it seems like you can make noise. You can garner his attention by being a little more boisterous than the thing next to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise, he's just sort of going through the motions. Certainly, Asgard is a big event that he's like, oh, I see that.
Yeah.
I think my favorite Easter egg is actually a character. I think Ravonna Renslayer is actually my favorite Easter egg because it directly points to the end game, and that I wasn't disappointed this time, even if it's not like sort of the Kang the Conqueror that we're familiar with. It's certainly we start to get into some stuff. So let's talk a little bit about He Who Remains, and I have a few different pictures in a row here.
Yeah, sure.
There's this fella here. Gentlemen, that's Nathaniel Richards. Nathaniel Richards is a version of a relative of Reed Richards, way like 25th, 26th, 35th century, something like that, way thousands of years in the future. And he, through a series of events, he becomes he goes outside time and starts to encounter other versions of himself. He creates a time machine. Sort of the first guy to do it, and it cascades backwards. All versions of Nathaniel Richards create this time machine at the same time, and then they start to find each other. And at first, they actually start working together, but then there's differences of opinion, and it becomes
sounds familiar,
right? And it becomes this whole multiversal war, and it's exactly what He Who Remains describes as happening.
Right.
But so Nathaniel Richards is the first iteration of He Who Remains. But this could be this version of Kang the Conqueror, although we're sort of led to believe that whatever reality Loki gets kicked through is now being run by this version here, the sort of 616 version of Kang the Conqueror that we're really familiar of.
Okay.
And this guy is the direct descendant, is also a Nathaniel Richards, but he, is almost, he shares some similarities in relation to Dr. Doom, to Victor Von Doom. Also a gateway to the Fantastic Four, who's a primary foe for. He's a lot more of a foe for the Fantastic Four and other spacefaring heroes than he was for the Avengers. So it's we're very close to that. And then there's one other sort of iteration that our He Who Remains could be, because there is an image of He Who Remains. And this is actually who I think this character is. There he is, Immortus. So, and if you could, we're going to pause the screen and read for a while. No, we don't want to do that. So basically, in a nutshell, Immortus is the version of He Who Remains, or Nathaniel Richards, or Kang the Conqueror that wins. He goes out. He's an Egyptian pharaoh. He goes back in time and becomes an Egyptian pharaoh. He goes out into the universe and conquers all these different realms. And minus the headgear here, this is how the character is dressed. Right there.
It's a very similar
in the show,
with the purples, the greens.
Right. And the big sort of Egyptian sort of half sort of necklace sun on his chest.
Yeah. I see it.
But so it's not as cut and dry that this is like, he could be and it's very hard to explain, and I know you guys know what I mean, but how Loki could be anyone, any version of himself, and we chose to follow one. This is also this version of Nathaniel Richards, or Kang the Conqueror, or Immortus, or He Who Remains. They're all the same guy, different iterations.
If we accept that Sylvie is an amalgam of comic characters, then there's no stretch to say that He Who Remains is a hybrid of any or all of the ones you've just described.
Right. But with the caveat, though, that I think that the most famous and sort of the most threatening version of this character for the MCU as a whole would definitely be Kang the Conqueror in his 616 iteration.
Okay.
And I think that you're going to find, and this might be the coolest, and maybe we're into speculation now, but I think you're going to find that Loki got kicked into 616.
Oh.
And that statue at the very end, do we have that?
Yeah.
We do have that.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a statue at the end, and it's clearly he's dressed exactly like the image I showed you earlier of Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah.
And so I think that might be an indication that we've actually kicked Loki into 616. And the connotations of that are really cool, because we could start having those, like, if you want, you could say that in WandaVision, that Halloween episode where everybody is dressed like their 616 iterations.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so maybe her boys are actually, her ability to be a Nexus being and to step outside realities, actually pulling her sons from a reality that hadn't even branched off yet. Like the immense power that shows.
Yeah.
So I guess now we're into sort of the speculation moving forward. Maybe we could start with the characters.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll kind of go first. Like, as a whole, in general, where I think the show is going, and I don't think that we're going to probably going to follow Kang all too much. I think that's just a big setup for the Marvel Universe as a whole, for the MCU movies moving forward. And I think the shows will dip in and out.
Do you think that they'll dole him out in similar fashion the way they did Thanos, with limited appearance?
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't take
like several movies.
13 years. Let's hope it doesn't take. But we know that that's their nature.
Right.
That's the MCU. So we might have to wait for a full scale Kang the Conqueror kind of thing. But I'm really interested to see mostly what happens to Loki in this, where he's been kicked, where he's mistaken for an agent, and they don't, like, Mobius doesn't appear to know him.
Yeah,
Mobius like, also appears to be in charge.
Yeah.
Mobius is in charge of the, he appears to be filling that Renslayer role.
Maybe.
And he's certainly much more villainous in the comics. He looks innocuous, but he chases Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four all over hell and high water for years and years and years. And I think, Sophie's going to have, we're going to have to return to Kang initially, because that's where we leave her, right? So we're going to have to figure out, you know, is she now going to have to take over his job by herself?
Trying to put everything back together, I guess, as it were.
You know, and he said that the only person that could do it is both of them. So, you know, she's not going to be able to do that on her own. So it might, you know, it might be another crime sort of thriller where we're, instead of trying to figure out who the variant is, now we're going to try to have to figure out how to get back again through the void and to the end of time to rescue himself.
Yeah.
And then I think I do think that we're headed into some iteration of the Fantastic Four with this character, which has been announced for Wave 5. So that does push us years and years down the line. I know that they've dangled Kang. Kang is a gateway to Doom for me, and so I know they've dangled Kang for the Doctor Strange movie. And we've dangled the multiverse ever since the last Spider-Man movie. And this, according to the trailer, we're really honing in on the idea that anything can happen now within the, you know, and that maybe the main bad guy is going to be just the environment, like we talked about in a few of our other shows.
Yeah.
Or just the multiverse is colliding itself. See, in the comics, they make it, you know, there's a heat death to the universe, and everything just starts back over. And so our podcast is always going to happen. There's going to be 100 trillion years between this podcast and the next time we're doing the exact same thing. But we'll be sort of rest assured in the that's why Kang says at the end, or he who remains, I gotta be careful. He who remains says at the end, I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
You know, either way, he's got nothing to lose. Stab me. It doesn't matter. That feels kind of cool. I'm coming back. Eventually, I or somebody like me or a version of me will be here, and there's no two ways about it.
And
Kang
you know,
is the biggest villain, and also sort of god of what we know about the MCU right now. We've never seen anybody more powerful than Kang yet, and we've seen some really powerful characters.
Yes,
we've seen Kurt Russell's ego. We've seen these, but they all exist in terms of that single universe. This is the first time we've seen a guy that can go, I can do all this stuff. I encourage everybody to read a little bio about Nathaniel Richards. Go in and do some research, because he has no superpowers. He's a normal guy who's just incredibly intelligent.
Right.
Everything based off the idea that he was able to develop a ship that traveled through time. He couldn't punch his way out of a wet paper bag. He knows when you're going to punch him, so he knows not to be there. It's, you know, and then the other thing is to have 100 trillion years of memory just all at your access. He knows all that stuff. Everything, all of it. Yeah. And he knows it's going to happen again. Guys,
I'm really interested to see sort of, you know, what is going to happen with, you know, Loki's in this place where, again, he's alone. Any of the allies that he had, you know, all two of them, one is in another, you know, is at the end of time. And the other one is a variant that doesn't even know who he is. So, you know, how do we get Mobius of where we are right now? How do we get him up to speed to where other Mobius was in the beginning of the episode, or the beginning of the series, to, you know, get him to realize that, oh, you're all variants. Like,
we watch Mobius go back to the TVA before the timeline splits. So ostensibly there are multiple Mobiuses, which is exact in the comic. Every TVA agent is a Mobius. There are certain, there's like the judges and the hunters, but all the TVA agents are all Mobius clones. So there's I mean, they use clone in the comic, they use variant in the show. It's very similar.
The idea that there's this potentially unlimited number of anybody's creates this, like, creates not only storytelling opportunities, but it creates these conundrums of, like, how do we use these characters effectively, and how do we, I mean, Loki can't do, there's nothing that guy can do on his own right now. Like, he is literally a fish out of water. And I mean, again, his name is on the show, so I want to know what's happening with him. And then I think, with Sylvie, and as you said, Andy, the emotional fallout of her death blow, how does that impact her going forward? Is this something that she can come back from? And is she going to assume try to assume the role of He Who Remains? Is she going to try and foster whatever it is that she felt with Tom Hiddleston's, with Loki Prime. Was that even genuine? I assume it's genuine because of the branch timeline that it, or the branch timeline that it started to create. I don't know, all these questions about the two principles that
there's a sort of thing where she is willing to trust him, doesn't trust anybody in the whole multiverse or universe at that time, and he's got to explain to her that, like, I've betrayed every single person I've ever known. Yeah, you know, what would I betray myself? Essentially, and turns out she would. So very interesting twist, actually, because she's been the one that's sort of been like, I can bridge that gap. I'm willing to trust you, and worried about him stabbing her in the back. Turns out she was the one willing to.
The line, you can't trust and I can't be trusted. Two sides of the same coin, and
right.
That in itself is this, like, oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well written.
Yeah, I think that's those are the big ones for me. And yeah,
you pretty much covered what I'm thinking. So
awesome. What about for the whole thing moving forward, the whole MCU? We know, I mean, we have titles. We know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen in those titles.
Multiverse is in the title of the Doctor Strange movie, and now that it's there, and we're on the precipice, about to step off. I don't know. Doctor Strange was a very. I didn't expect the Doctor Strange movie to be as good as it was, and I didn't expect Stephen Strange to be this as compelling as he is. So I'm really, really interested to know how that's going to play it, especially with knowing that Wanda plays a major role in this, knowing that, the MCU as we know it is now fractured, for lack of a better word. And I don't know, short of introducing new heroes that we don't already know, who else is better suited to try and put it all back together. So, I mean, I'm really excited to see where the feature films are going, particularly the Doctor Strange film.
Yeah, we're right on the cusp of that. Does anybody know the release sort of schedule?
I don't know.
The very near release schedule. Shang-Chi is first.
Yeah, and then Spider-Man in December, and Doctor Strange next summer.
Right, and the Eternals, is that in between there?
It might be.
I'll see if there's,
But then we also have
I'll look it up.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania coming up as
well. And there's another.
And they have said that Kang will make a fairly big impact in that.
Right, and that's true. And there's another, that's definitely true. And I've heard a few rumors, like they've gone full stop on Venom. If you guys have noticed, they just released the trailer a couple weeks ago, and it was supposed to come out.
Was it a new one?
Soon?
Yeah,
a new trailer. The new trailer. I've seen the first trailer for it.
Right. Yeah. So there was a second trailer, I believe, and they've gone full stop. And now the release date has been pushed back past Spider-Man into next year. And people are wondering if they're not going to actually have a Venom cameo or a character cameo, because now so they might not want to done them out of order in terms of a.
Maybe. I'm showing Eternals as November 5th, 2021.
Okay. So that's very soon.
Yeah, oddly enough, when you say that, Hank, going back to the Venom thing just for a second, earlier this week, there was a press release from Sony. Their big convoluted name, the Sony universe of Marvel characters, as it was called, is no longer. They've renamed it. It is the Spider-Man universe.
Spider-Verse.
Spider-Man.
I'll see if I can find exactly what the
and this is the third Spider-Man is the last one that MCU is allowed to sort of, before they renegotiate. It's the last time their MCU is allowed to use him.
Yeah.
Under the
it's a distribution deal.
Yeah, totally it is.
It's very convoluted, and it doesn't make any sense for anybody involved. Let Sony own the rights. Let movie studios work together all the time. It doesn't make any sense that they would, that there's money in it for them. Why would they hold this character hostage like this?
Sorry, I've just got it here now. It's the Sony has revealed that its new name for their non-MCU films will be called Sony's Spider-Man universe, previously going by Sony's universe of Marvel characters.
Crazy.
So yeah, so that squarely puts Venom in the same pot with Webhead.
So hopefully they can get on board with one another and come up with some distribution deal to keep this thing seamless.
I certainly hope so. Yeah.
I know that Sony has been, I love PlayStations, but I know that they've been a pain.
A big cash cow for them, right? You can bet your ass that they're not going to want to, look at the placeholder movies that have been made just to keep film rights. I mean, the Corman's Fantastic Four, which never got a theatrical release. They didn't even tell the actors that you're making a placeholder movie, by the way. Didn't even tell them that. So if you've never seen that, go check it out. Corman's Fantastic Four. It's kind of weird.
You guys have ever watched movie? Yeah. If you guys have ever watched Arrested Development, there's a sort of a thread season 3 where one of the characters, Tobias, wants to make a Fantastic Four musical. So he's trying to get the rights from Ron Howard. And Ron Howard's like, no, we don't want to lose the rights. So we just keep remaking the movie every couple of years just to keep the rights because we want to screw over Disney or whatever the line is there. I guess for me moving forward, between that and the X-Men, that's the thing I want the most is the Fantastic Four. And I think I want it more than the X-Men because I've had a few iterations of the X-Men and I'm tired of them frigging it up. And I think that in terms of what we can do with the new Fantastic Four, I'm really looking forward to that. And the end of this movie puts us right on that sort of trajectory. And I know that it hasn't been announced for till Phase 5. But the fact that we got Black Widow Phase 1 as a cameo in the second Iron Man movie. So we might start to see these things in the theatrical releases. We might start to see an end credit scene where Professor X tells Wolverine, go find Wanda. Or, could be something as simple as like, we all go crazy for that stuff.
Well, I mean, simply the fact that Marvel Studios is taking a chance on lesser known properties speaks volumes to me that they are, and really the take home is they are willing to take chances, like short of like the comic fans who knows what the Eternals are, and same thing with Shang-Chi. I mean, the fact that you're bringing these characters and you're giving them the Marvel treatment. So we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars to make these movies.
Agreed.
They're not going to waste it. They're not going to waste them. And dollars to donuts, there will be some bigger connection to there'll be a Phase 4 thread through all of these. And that's exciting. That I have certain curiosity about that.
Yeah, I like the idea that we're going to go on another 10 or 15 year ride. And that also that nobody's burnt out on this the genre yet. It opens the gateway for
he doesn't actually like the superhero genre, and he predicted that it would die out in like a decade.
Still going,
buds.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that it gives you. It promised so much when it started, and it hasn't faltered. And the idea that you could, and I always go back to this, but I really think that Lost, the television show Lost, the ABC show J.J. Abrams created Lost, is one of the reasons that we have the Marvel universe like this now, like the MCU, and the reason we have a cohesive Star Wars universe like now is because it was one of the first TV shows that was like, okay, I'm going to write a show and I'm going to make it for intelligent people. And I'm sure you could follow along if you weren't all that bright, but it's something that raises the stakes. It raises the level of interest and involvement, personal involvement. It dangles internal Easter eggs and it runs through, and then the biggest thing is that there's a 6-year narrative and that people will wait for a 6-year narrative. You could sit through 30 seasons of Doctor Who if you want, but it's not, and there's a greater narrative, but it's the idea that people will sit still. And I don't think they understood that before. I think that maybe they understood that before George Lucas was onto something with the serialization, like reintroducing the serialization of film, that idea.
Right.
But I think Lost proved that people will sit through something crazy and intelligent and long.
Yep.
And as long as you keep it engaging. And I firmly believe that Kevin Feige has ran with that model. And we was it 2008 Iron Man?
The first Iron Man, 2008, and then you got Hulk the same year.
We're not slowing down. We know that Fantastic Four is going to be out in 2025. We know, right? Like we know, so there's no slowing down. And I'm, as a comic book nerd, as a yeah, I couldn't be happier. It's a renaissance of these things.
Yeah.
You know, like we used to have to hide. We used to have to talk to each other secretly because if a girl heard us talking about how Captain America kicked Spider-Man's ass,
Yep.
we never would have, you know, they didn't talk to us anyway. But
one thing I will say about Loki going forward in terms of like the bigger MCU is like going forward, he's our link to phases 1 through 3. So as long as his show is doing well and he is a predominant feature within the greater MCU, and I'm going to include the television properties in there because they are superfluous. He's the link to the I guess we can call them the legacy characters that we've already grown to love. So right. I kind of hope that everything that came before is not ignored, and I hope that that Loki keeps that sort of those doors open, because Captain America is not Captain America anymore. It's Sam Wilson, and I'm okay with that. But I mean, you can't just abandon, you know, Thor. You can't abandon, I mean, short of the people who are dead, you can't ignore those characters. And so, you know, I want them to continue. And if Loki's the linchpin to do that, yeah, let's bring it on.
And I'm pretty sure he's going to be back in the Dark Avengers movie that they announced, because he's pretty instrumental in that storyline, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
but
their anthology
he can also be the bridge to the end.
Loki?
Yes.
Yeah.
Putting us down this multiversal war, like we're going to have another multiverse war. We're going to have everything go to hell, and bringing Kang closer to Doctor Doom, we could end up with a battle world and another secret war.
Oh, yeah. I never even considered that.
Which might be a good thing for the MCU, because that gives them the opportunity to reset the whole thing and start fresh with newer actors.
That's true.
Which, you know, from movie standpoint, great, I guess. But
that's actually my theory on their big end game for the next 2 phases, maybe even the third phase, if they do a 3-phase thing again. I thought that's the fight with the Beyonder on Battle World with every you could imagine. Maybe a trilogy certainly would be where we headed. And ever since I read those comics, like, I know I'm talking the original Secret War, not the modern reiteration, because there's a lot of actually there's a lot of sort of multiversal war stuff from the 2015 version that tracks here. But I'm thinking of that classic Battle World where they grabbed a handful of villains and they had grabbed a handful of superheroes, and Beyonder put them on a world and told them that they could fight, and the winner got to go home. And like, so many cool things came out of that. And I always thought, what if they could make that a movie? Like, the cast is like, there's 30 heroes and 30 villains. And I mean, you have Kang and Doom on the same battlefield. You have Reed Richards, Spider-Man, Tony Stark. Well, actually, it's Rhodes. Actually, it's a War Machine in the Stark Armor in the original comic.
Yeah,
Rhodey. And I mean, but you have unbelievable comic. If you guys haven't checked that out, man, like, I can't say enough about, like, I opened the show with it, and I can't say it, like, this is where that came from, and this is why we love it, because we loved the comics, and we loved, you know, and I encourage everybody to return to those things. If you haven't read Secret Wars in a while, if you haven't read the Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries in a while, go back, and there's places to find free comics online and read them. And this is our myths, guys. Like, this is some cool stuff happening, and I'm so happy to be a part of the culture, and actually, like, and now that we're doing these shows, it feels like we're active participants in the culture, even if it's for 5 fans. We're no longer just bystanders, which is really nice.
No, exactly.
I would tell people my opinions on Loki until they told me to shut up at work all day long. But it feels like we're participating in the culture, and that's super important to me. Super important.
I agree too. I mean, you know, everything has changed with the internet, and so, like, having the access to like everybody who's involved, from the lowest, you know, grip on a set to, you know, the actors, producers, directors, you know, to be able to have a conduit to confer or to communicate messages to them directly, for better or for worse, has changed the landscape. And I mean, you know, the fan voice, you know, it can make a difference. And we've seen fans make a difference. And so, yeah, absolutely being part of that, being part of the, you'd like to think in some way that we are helping drive the narrative to some degree.
I mean, yeah, if you look at the legs that the fan post has, that's some fantastic stuff. I get endorphins from stuff like that. And it's just nice to see that people are opinionated and that they really care about these characters like us. It's nice to find common ground. People you don't even know. One of the best things about that Robotech show we did with the fellas was when they realized that we were as committed to the idea as they were like, wow, okay, so there's this huge network of, you know, and in a place in a time when there's so many wedges being driven into society to separate people along race divides, along sexual divides, along gender divides, along all these divides. It's really nice to have a place where we can all just get together and watch Loki and go,
that's
wow.
right. Yeah.
You know what I
we
mean?
Can hang
I think
out.
that's super important right now.
Sure it is. Sure it is.
I want to be entertained. I want to be distracted. The world bothers me, but this feels like we're participating in that. So it's less like I'm just sitting there mindlessly on the couch going, I'm just going to binge watch this. It feels like, you know, when I spend 9 hours out of my week doing notes on a thing, I feel like I'm in there in the trenches with all the people creating what I love. Couldn't be happier.
I'm there with you, man. I am totally there with you.
Amen.
I'm going to bring up one little weird thing. I know we've talked about this before, certainly, and this is sort of touching on sort of the corporate aspect of things and how much the MCU has influenced the look of Marvel Comics. That now the comic version of Star-Lord looks an awful lot like Chris Pratt et al. And so all of the film properties have sort of influenced the comic books, because if the films are doing well, then the synergy is maybe kids will go out and buy some comic books. And we sort of alluded to it earlier on this show. Now that we have this multiversal concept, do you think that there's an avenue here for Marvel Comics to publish stories within the MCU in comic format, so that this isn't just Star-Lord just looks like Chris Pratt? No, it is Chris Pratt's version of Star-Lord. Do we think that there's room for that?
Sure.
They certainly could do a 1999959.
Yeah, that one.
5 nines, which is the official designation of the MCU. They certainly could. They've done it in Star Wars. They have for kids now. It's a branch sort of division, but Star Wars Adventures is like tales you're familiar with, but reframed and aimed at younger audiences, things of that nature. Certainly, we've had, since we were little kids, comic adaptions of movies. I can think of the Indiana Jones ones as actually some of the standout stuff that I've ever had my hands on. Especially Temple of Doom. The comic Temple of Doom is fantastic. So it's not that big a stretch. At first, when I first watched Iron Man, and I had realized, okay, he's not in Vietnam in the 60s.
Right.
He's in Afghanistan in the 2000s. I went, okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to be doing the Ultimate Universe.
Right.
And I sort of thought we're going to be pigeonholed into that. But then I watched it evolve so that they were much like what Dave and John are doing with Star Wars is that we're cherry picking the best parts. And when you're talking about Marvel Comics, you're talking about billions of words.
Yep.
Of, you know, spread out over
decades.
7 decades now, 70 years of Marvel Comics, and 100 million issues. There's just no end. And it's nice to see that we're delving into these places now, like the Eternals. And Shang-Chi, like you said before, and knowing what's coming down the pipe, because we're sick, and I think that maybe that they understand that now. We're sick of watching Spider-Man's origin story over and over again. Sick of watching the X-Men being generated over and over again. There's no reason that you can't hit the ground running with any one of these characters that are super familiar. If we went to Afghanistan today, you're going to find people that know who Spider-Man is.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why I say that they're modern myths. They're up there with Hercules and Jesus. But people know who they, and so you don't have to, you know, you can just have the little caption of the balloon at every single comic book started with a caption above of Spider-Man saying Peter Parker bitten by a radioactive spider and led this life of,
Yeah.
real simple at the, and it wouldn't bother anybody to have a comic book style caption at the top at the beginning of your thing, and then hit the ground running with all these stories. Certainly we're probably going to get a little backstory on the Eternals, and probably we're going to learn where Shang-Chi came from. But for characters that are well established, you don't need to show me the Weapon X program again, right?
Yeah.
Let me see Wolverine fight the Hulk. That stuff.
No, I hear you right there. Let's especially in like you say, properties that have already been adapted for film. So I mean, the wider movie going audience already has a concept of who and what these characters are. You don't need to redefine it for them. Just give us what is ostensibly the best version of that character you can give us without having to do the exposition dump.
And the problem that is also, while I'm most excited about a Fantastic Four property in this universe, I'm also most leery about how they're going to handle the genesis of that, because we've seen them 3 times try to tell the origin story. And the last one, while visually stunning, was I crap better screenplays while I'm on the toilet. Yeah,
it fell real short.
It was awful. They had an all-star cast and an all-star set and effects and everything. And then Dr. Doom, are you? Ah, come on. So we have to do those things. And, I'd be okay with the original story, but like, if you can just have a montage at the beginning so that we're, we show them, getting bombarded. We show them waking up out of the craft and have their powers. And then we go 20 years later, and that's fine with me. But I don't want you to tell me the story for 2 hours. I've seen it already. I know it already. And I don't think there are many people who don't. Now, I get that, if we were going to do a Thanos movie, you need to know a little bit more. That's not, the average cat doesn't know that stuff. Sure. But when you're talking about the top tier characters, and we're about to get into that stuff, we can just hit the ground running.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one for sure. What do you think, guys? Where are we at here?
I don't really have any. I mean, we could wrap it up.
Weird thing. Based on the whole synergy between Marvel Cinematic Universe and comics,
right?
It's kind of funny that we have Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness coming in involving Wanda, and they've killed them both in the comics.
Oh,
the death of Doctor Strange, and Wanda was murdered. So Magneto is currently on trial.
Yeah.
I'm certainly, I'm be the first one to say that I am so not in touch with what's happening in comic books today. But I will say this: the trope of nothing is permanent.
No.
So I mean,
I'm sure both of them will be back just in time for the movie. So
yeah.
Sometimes with what I said before, with billions of lines of dialogue and story and hundreds of millions of issues, and you start to swing for the fences when things get stale, and they have a metric for when things get stale, and it might not be about what you're telling the story about, or who's your artist or who's your writer, although those things definitely influence it in terms of comics. But it could just be the zeitgeist,
Right.
I really like print media is dying, and we see it in the news, right? And so I worry about something as sacred to me as the idea of a comic book becoming something that is just digital. Because as a collector, I like that physical thing, man. And there's also a way, and I read a psychological study. This would be interesting to you guys, just real quick, is that comic book readers who are steeped in it, who grew up reading comics, read in a different way than any other kind of reader.
Oh yeah, I believe that.
We're interacting with visual imagery and words simultaneously, and our brains are developed in a way that's specialized to do that. That people who have never read a comic, they have to look at one and look at another, and look at one and look at, and almost transpose back and forth. In the same way, a person who just reads novels, or just looks at imagery. So we've adapted this highly, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want that to be inevitably sequential art, sequential storytelling through art is what I fell in love with. It's probably my biggest love. To watch these guys is just a dream. I wanted to watch that on screen at 50 feet tall my whole life, but at its core, it's sequential art through storytelling, and I don't want to lose that. And so I hope that kids go back to the source, and I try to be influential, and I try to say, encourage our watchers and stuff. Doug, read comics to your kid. This is where it all starts. And I don't want to lose that stuff. I think it's important that we maintain something there, you know. So it's a good idea that we bring these ideas into the comics, and it's like a self-perpetuating thing now.
Right.
The propensity for comics to swing for the fences when they don't think they have another story to tell. It's beautiful that the MCU has a venue to tell stories that have been told, but that most of the world doesn't know. That's really
I agree
nice.
with you on that.
It's a good way of making an old thing fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, there are avenues out there for you to consume comic books at very little or no cost. And I mean, if that is your only access to it, then yeah, don't not do it, because you know there's a barrier there. Like, get out there and read something, because it's just
100%. You're missing something if you're not doing it. There was an old comic in the 80s, Spider-Man. I can't recall the number of it. Amazing Spider-Man had Hobgoblin on the cover, and it had the little caption in the bottom: "Steal this comic." I don't think you could get away with that now.
Probably
you could get away with that now. But if I had been 12 years old and I saw that on a newsstand and there was no one around, I would listen to the Hobgoblin. Hell yeah. Guys, I mean, I don't have anything else to say. I was super impressed with Loki. I'm super impressed where we're headed. And I'm just overjoyed to be part of this and to know that we're going, you know, forward. I guess I have to say things about Kevin Feige like I say about Dave Filoni. He hasn't let me down. I don't know anything about him before Iron Man, but he hasn't let me down one iota. Super excited about his Star Wars movie. And I'm super excited that Michael Waldron is the writer of that Star Wars movie.
Oh, excellent.
Guys, I mean, if time travel isn't a thing in Star Wars, it's going to be soon.
Yeah, very soon. So for the last 2 hours or so here, we've been talking about Loki, the first season of Loki. Unfortunately, all of these properties have come out simultaneously and they've overlapped, and we have not been able to break them down in our custom style because, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Star Wars came first. So there is lots more to come from from us here at Fandom Power. And I want to thank everybody that's involved. Andy, who is co-creator, editor extraordinaire. Hank, couldn't ask for a better co-host, even though you're 14 hours away. Thank you for being with us. And for all of you,
in the next few years.
For all of you at home who are listening on all of our audio platforms or consuming the video versions on YouTube, thank you for coming along with us. Like and subscribe, share with your friends. Please engage with us on all of our social media and be part of the conversation and help drive the show the way you want it to be driven.
And we'll be back with some What If, we promise.
We will be coming back with some What If. We have some general pop culture episodes that are still in the pipeline. But we are trying to keep up with all of the television properties and film properties as we are slowly making our way back to theaters amongst the woes of COVID. But we're going to be here one way or another to cover it, and we hope you guys come along with us as well. So thanks once again, everybody. This is for you, Hank. Take us out.
For all time, always. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next weekend.
All right, guys. Bye for now.
Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to Fandom Power. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be talking about another one of your favorite fandoms. Fandom Power is a Sawcast production.